Let's party.
Hello and welcome to the Party Loaded podcast for Wednesday night. We're back to Wednesday night. It's Wednesday night on December the 9th for episode 236. Welcome to the show. Before I go any further, quick audio test, gents. Are we looking okay? Have I messed up? Testing.
Hello?
Someone in chat let us know if I've screwed up the audio. It's only episode 236. I'm sure I would have gotten this right by now. We've had enough practice.
It seems fine.
Yeah.
It seems fine.
Sounds fine. All right. Good. Well, it's Christmas season. Everybody's drinking. I'm going to put it down to just being absolutely too drunk to podcast. Sure. I can use that excuse once, right? At least once. Anyway, welcome to the show. My name's Luke Ratellik. Joining me tonight, we have the full crew. We have Matt the Game Dad Diet. We have Christian Paulson Brown. And we have Dr. Eggman Robotnik up in the other corner. AKA Adrian Shear.
Like an egg.
Well, you were wearing an egg sticker on your head before, so...
It's gone now.
It's gone, yeah.
Now I look at Adrian's face, I really can't unsee the egg with hair.
The egg? Yeah. Do you want to crack it open and feast on the goo within?
Gross. Yeah, a little dark there. Yeah, how you guys going? As far as eggs go, I think it's probably hot enough to fry an egg on my desk for most parts of today.
We lost Matt.
We just lost Matt.
Oh no, he's back.
He's back.
Oh, he's messed up the names. We've all changed.
No, I'm Luke. No, I have the power.
I'm still Adrian. Why do I?
You're all fired. I'm cutting all your pay.
I'm not fixing that. People can work it out. Hey, he's back. Matt
I chose that moment to like Discord just silently crashed. It just went boop, just disappeared, and then restarted a second later. Thanks, Discord.
I thought that you just cracked it, is what I thought. Yeah.
No, I just that mental image was just too much for Discord, and it was just
Luke,
it just died.
The egg puns are already overdone.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
No, I won't. Okay. It's all right. We've got a whole show to do. We've got listeners who have to put up with this. I don't want to be, shellfish. So, all right. So, moving along, we have a big show tonight. We have the first part of our annual party favorites to get through, which is basically the party loaded version of our Game of the Year discussion. But of course, it's not objective at all. We all play different stuff throughout the year. It's entirely subjective. We all have vastly different opinions, so there's no way we're ever going to agree on anything. So this is why we do it as the party favorites as opposed to Game of the Year. That's kind of our spin on it anyway. But also, we don't to do the traditional categories. We've got a good mix, and this year we've got a few. Let's just call them new introductory versions of categories that we wouldn't normally do for the sake of fun. So there's
vastly superior categories than what most game websites have.
I gotta say, I am a big fan of them. I'm a super big fan of them.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I had a lot of fun with them. It was good.
No, it'll be good. So we got that ahead. Lots of game stuff to talk about. But before we get to any of that, I wanted to, at the top of the show, we have a little bit of something to talk about. So we're going to sort of chat about this up until now, but given that we are sort of approaching the final two episodes of 2020, it's probably time now to announce that this episode 236, is in fact the penultimate episode of the Party Load podcast. So we are going to be wrapping up as of next episode in a fortnight's time on episode 237. It will be the final episode of the show. So that's it. It's a kind of big announcement. It's 5+ years. We've had a pretty long run, so it feels like a pretty massive thing to get out there. But that's it. So yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
That's
crazy.
the one.
What a long, crazy journey it's been.
Absolutely. But I think we've also
cut to the clip show.
Yeah. the retroactive clip show, yeah.
Remember that time Christian got his head stuck in the banister?
No, it's this clip show with this really nice, heartwarming music, and it's just all of these moments of Adrian raging out.
I would definitely
remember that episode where Matt and I went on a date with the same woman? Oh, my God. The hijinks that ensued.
Holy shit.
Oh, God.
No, but bit of background. Obviously, we've been sitting on this for a little while. This is a discussion we had several months ago at this point, so we've kind of slowly been leading up to it. But look, the timing is right. It's end of year. It's the end of the console generation, essentially. So we're rolling into a big new era for video games, and I think we've all sort of discussed the fact that we've been doing this for quite a while now. And I'm not going to speak for the rest of the crews, but personally speaking, I'm really proud of what we've achieved, and I think that we've had an extremely good run. And creatively, I'm chomping at the bit to dive into something new. Is kind of what it comes down to for me in particular. Matt, you've got a lot of stuff going on in terms of creative endeavors. So
I have too much going on, and so for me, it's very much an opportunity to kind of like cut back on the amount of things that I'm doing to focus on some stuff next year. So
absolutely, yeah.
For me, it's freeing up a fortnightly Wednesday. It has made me think that there is another gaming-based activity, Adrian, that we might be able to feel fortnightly, which is potentially a return to D&D for us.
Oh shit!
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
I have long dreamed of getting back into D&D, especially because like just a little thing, but a friend of a friend has just started dating a guy who plays D&D, and so it's back in the conversation of my life, and like it would be really cool. But I initially thought you would just talk about jacking each other off.
Like, we can always we can fit that in any time.
But
that's true.
Technically, Adrian, that is D&D, so you know
that's good. I like that.
That's one way of looking at it.
I will point out one of the things I am continuing next year is my D&D campaign, which is down 2 players.
Oh, there you go.
Fucking hell. Like, I was going to be putting all this extra time into some new game dev projects to getting my teeth wet on that, but like, I didn't know D&D was on the table. Fucking sign me up.
Being a DM is kind of like developing a game. You know?
It is.
Yeah, it is true.
Yeah.
Absolutely
It's
true.
a lot of hard work. It's underappreciated. Everybody complains when they don't get what they want.
Yeah.
Luke, we have someone in the audience asking if World's End Radio is going to return. That's a callback.
Yeah, well, actually, funnily enough, like with the lead up to our announcement tonight, being a thing that's been on my mind recently, it did actually get me thinking quite a bit about my previous podcast, World's End Radio. For anyone who was unaware, long time before Party Loaded was a thing, I used to do another show which went for about 6 or 7 or maybe even 8 years. Not a true representation of how many episodes we did because the schedule was pretty intermittent towards the end of it. We didn't have a good sort of regular sort of cadence of episodes, which was one of the big failings. But I've always said that if I did another show after that, I did not want to make the same mistake I did then, which is to allow it to pod fade. I wanted to actually end on a high note, do it properly, and not let something sort of gradually fade away, as opposed to doing it right, making sure that we actually tail end the show, have a satisfying conclusion, a satisfying finale, if you like. And Party Favorites is a perfect finale in my mind because we get to wrap up the year and talk about some of our favorite games of the last sort of basically part of the era, I guess. So
thinking maybe for the final episode I might just do it nude.
That's what it's all been leading to, let's face it.
Get the Twitch account banned, like make it really final, right?
What a way to go out.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. I've always sort of had it in my back of my mind too that for various reasons the final show is probably going to be the biggest test of my like on the fly live editing ability as well. So
it's gonna be I hereby vow it'll be the most vulgar, disgusting, unbroadcastable episode of Party Lover that will ever have existed.
Wow, and that's a very high bar given what every week is like with Adrian on the podcast.
I don't know. It's definitely starting as a low bar. Might get high by the end of the episode. Depends. I'm not sure. But for anyone who's actually stuck with us from the very, very first episode 5 years ago, thank you very much. I mean, obviously we couldn't have even gotten this far without
you crazy people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
What's wrong with you?
What the fuck?
Go outside.
I'll put it out there now. If anyone's stuck with us from the very beginning, I would love to hear from you. I think it'd be really, really nice.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you can always get in touch with us via our Twitter or Facebook, etc., which I'm sure if you've listened to every episode, you know what that is by now because we mention it every fucking week. So that's it. But yeah, I mean that's kind of it. Let's not dwell on it too much because this isn't the final episode. We've still got everything to chat about tonight. We've got another whole episode to go. We are going to be doing a slight move on our schedule though. Our final show will be on Monday, the 21st of December. So it's obviously this time of year, Christmas starts to get a bit hairy around certain people's calendars, and we had to make a couple of changes so that we could all do it properly. So Monday night show instead of the usual Wednesday. We'll make sure we post it loud and clear on all of our socials and that sort of stuff so you don't miss out on the announcements. So, but that's that. So, all right, let's talk about some games. Let's actually talk about some games. Has anybody got anything new that they would like to add about what we've all been playing?
Anything other than Destiny?
We did do a raid stream last week, which was a lot of fun. So yeah, what did you guys?
That was good.
What have you guys thought about the last couple of weeks? Since actually doing the raid a few times now, being a bit more comfortable with it. How's that all sitting with you?
I am very firmly of the opinion at this point that Beyond Light is actually my favorite Destiny expansion. I think, without much competition. That's pretty very much coming from like the lore nerds perspective. Like, there's a lot of stuff that the expansion's done in terms of actually answering questions. And I came into it with very low expectations because I was and am still very pissed off about a lot of the Sunset stuff.
Mm-hmm. Some interesting announcements about that today as well.
Yeah. But the additions that the expansion's made and the cadence of material, like I don't feel like it's all being dumped there at once. It's impossible to burn yourself out on the content. Like it's very every single 2 weeks at the moment, it's basically like here's a morsel of Destiny. It's like, get that in my mouth, cool. I've had a bit of Destiny now, and I actually feel like at the moment, if I finish Hawkmoon, then I'm set to actually pick up Cyberpunk or another game. I don't feel like I'm beholden to Destiny, and that's a new kind of feeling because the fear of missing out was really strong in the last couple of seasons, last couple of expansions. So
yeah.
I'm
in a similar kind of position at the moment where I've obviously got my goals as far as the season goes. I want to, get all the seals I possibly can, with the exception of Trials of Osiris, because it's not running at the moment for a start. And also, fuck that, because PvP toxic. God. Ugh. Anyway, not all PvP, just that. But yeah, like I'm definitely feeling like I'm pacing myself well at the moment. I hit my first 1260 weapon today, which is at absolute sort of top of the hard cap. And filling out my 3 characters at that level won't take very long now, which is good. So it's going to be all just...
Won't take long for you.
Well, no, it won't. It won't. It might take like another week or two, but yeah, we'll see.
I mean, I had my first 1256 weapon drop the other day, and I haven't been pushing for it. Like, I was quite happy to sit at 1250.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the big thing that drives me to get up there at all is because I know what the requirements are for doing the Grandmaster Nightfalls, and I know how much fucking fun I had with that last season. So I want to be ready for it because I know it's going to be real good. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to hear about what the Destiny future plans for Grandmaster activities are as well, because Nightfalls, the Grandmaster Nightfalls next season looks like they're going to start adding some of those new, what are they called? The weapons that have the additional stats on them. What's the term?
I didn't recognize the term.
It's what they're doing with Trials this season when it actually gets added back into the game.
Started with an A, did it? It wasn't Adept or something.
Yeah, no, it was.
Sorry, I missed that.
I think it was Adept weapons. Yeah. So what Adept weapons are essentially is they're weapons that have like an additional bump to all of their stats in a similar way to what happens when you masterwork armor. And I think there's special Adept mods that you can get, which you can only slot in those weapons, which do slightly different things. So they're going to be doing that for Nightfalls too, which is that kind of stuff for PvE, which makes me very, very happy because I don't want to miss out on that content, but I also don't want to play my least enjoyable part of the game to do it, sort of thing. So I think that's really, really cool. I'm looking forward to that. But yeah,
I'm in a pretty comfortable place with Destiny now, where because I only started playing this year. There was a period where I felt like I was racing Beyond Light. Like I wanted to get a bunch of stuff done before Beyond Light came out, and I feel like I managed to crest that wave, and now I'm kind of coasting comfortably. So I've ticked off a lot of the boxes of the new content. I still have some stuff to do, but now I feel like I'm not racing any deadlines. It feels comfortable. I can just enjoy it a little bit at a time, week by week, and I don't feel like I'm falling behind with anything.
Yeah.
So I'm enjoying it.
And it doesn't feel like such a like a monumental thing to organize, like a raid group at the moment, for instance. Like it's something we can, organize at the drop of a hat very easily and cruise through at a leisurely pace. And like when we did the raid last week, like I think what did it take us, like 80 minutes, and that was the second run through for some of us. So that was
I screwed up in a couple of places. Yeah.
I'm just going to throw some raid footage up on the screen now. Minus 12 spoilers for anybody who hasn't seen this stuff. So if you're super precious about raid spoilers, look away now. But just keep talking while I do that.
I was just going to say, I think like my objective with Destiny is focused on the collection. I'm like on acquiring one of everything. I'm not so focused on getting good rolls of gear. Like I've never felt like high stat armor has been super important and made a huge difference. Like it's good to have, but like with the new raid, for example, once I've got one of each item, I'll be perfectly comfortable just to sort of not really raid much anymore. I don't feel like I have to keep going for higher and higher rolls or anything like that.
Yeah. On that note, though, one thing I am absolutely determined to do is to pull Matt across the line with regards to getting the raid exotics. Like I feel like it's our duty as a squad now, given that the three of us have been so lucky with it in the opening weeks, that we need to pull Matt across that line.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Because do you have 1K voices yet, Matt?
Nope.
No, okay.
Yeah, everybody else on the podcast has it except me. And I'm not I would freaking do the raid like 2 or 3 times every week. I'll have fun with it. But getting 1K voices, I just don't no, I will say.
We'll see.
It's one of those things. Yeah, like I was shocked when we sort of all got the new exotic rocket launchers so quickly, and it really has made me think that they must have adjusted the drop rates. So, Matt, I honestly would be surprised if it takes you a stupid amount of time, given how much we're probably going to be running this thing in the next few weeks. So, but for perspective, like when I got it, it was my 9th run. Like it's not like I got it on my first or second. So. I had been hitting it a lot, and I even sort of went over, hitting it a lot. I even had gone over my sort of normal amount of attempts that I could do in a week and still get rewards. Like I'd done it in excess of that just because I was enjoying it so much. So, which is
it's a damn good raid. Again, like favorite expansion, favorite raid. Like just the story that kind of gets told through the process of playing it is just. I think any of the other raids have really kind of captured that feeling, which is kind of neat. Yeah.
Yeah.
I my relationship with Destiny is interesting because I really got on board with Destiny in between. What was just after Forsaken, I think. So Forsaken came out, and then I really got on board. So I had a shit ton of content to catch up on that made the collecting and the loot grabbing of the game feel endless. And by Beyond Light, I had pretty much fully caught up in most areas of the game. And because of that, now that I was ready to go at the gate for Beyond Light, there's not enough content for me. Like I just churn through it so quickly that I feel like there isn't, especially because it's the only game that I'm playing. Like I can understand if you were playing this in addition to some other things, then it would be something to just fill in between playing other stuff. But because it's my current sort of main game, I feel like there hasn't been enough content. But I don't think that's a problem with Destiny. I think that's just the way that I consume Destiny itself. And unlike Christian, I am sort of chasing those roles on different gear, so that does give it a bit more legs for me, give it a bit more life. But I was saying to, I think it was Christian or Luke or someone, it might have been you two guys on Discord, that like even getting the exotic rocket launcher from the raid, which everyone is chasing, getting it so early was actually almost a bit of a killer. Like
it was me,
Yeah, I was telling you guys, like getting it that early almost killed, like it kills part of the raid for me, because now that I've got it, you're not chasing the dragon anymore to get it, so it shortens the life of the raid for me.
I understand that. Yeah,
because now that I've got it, the armor will be easier to get, and once I've got all the armor, the rocket launcher, it's harder to be motivated to go back in.
It's a fascinating discussion, actually. It's one that I've kind of touched on a bunch of times with Matt, in terms of the psychology behind it. Like having those hard to reach rewards there's ones that you can have locked behind gameplay requirements, which you can just literally grind for, and there's no real kind of lucky nature to it. Like if you put the time in, you put the hours in, you will get there, kind of thing. Like even the stuff that's behind a certain skill ceiling, like if you throw yourself at them enough, you'll get there. Versus the ones that are just like sheer dumb luck. That I find that sometimes that stuff can give you a real buzz that the other stuff doesn't give you, just because everybody likes the feeling when they get lucky. But then sort of Matt's argument, of course, because he's been on the receiving end of this side, is what happens when you don't get lucky for the longest time, and then you get the complete opposite sort of psychological results. So I've sympathized with both ends. I really do. Yeah.
It's really interesting because like the Legend and Master Lost Sectors, I've been doing them a lot recently to try and get exotics. And initially it was basically like, hey, I'm going to do it on my Warlock, get the Necrotic Grasps, the new Warlock exotic. Then I'll go and do it on my Titan, and I'll get Icefall Mantle on my Titan. And it was funny how much of a different experience it was between the two of them, because when I did it on my Warlock, it took me 15 runs, basically an entire day of doing nothing else but Legend Lost Sectors.
Yeah. Were you doing all the champions?
Yes. It was every single time it was platinum rewards.
Wow.
And so it was just mega unlucky. It was just very, very bad luck. It took me several hours to finally get them to drop. And by that point, it wasn't enjoyable anymore. It was relief when it dropped. Just like, thank God I've ticked that thing off.
Yeah.
But then a couple of days later, I went in with my Titan to another one. And ran around on that and did about 8 runs and had the Icefall Mantle drop. And I wasn't expecting it to drop, right? Like I'm like preparing myself for 15 runs to have this thing drop. And I actually got excited. I actually kind of jumped down my seat. I'm like, oh, fuck yes, this thing dropped finally. Awesome. That's great. And it had me so enthused that I actually hopped over onto my Warlock and kept on running it to try and get a better roll on one of my other exotics, which I managed to get. And that felt really good. But 15 runs in a row with like nothing to really show for it sucks ass.
I've taken the approach this season that I'm not going to do big grind sessions like that for this kind of gear. Like the new sort of exotic sniper, the Cloud Strike, which you get from doing the variable difficulty Empire hunts. I know that I'm going to be doing at least one of those per week per character for the pinnacle reward anyway. So given that I'm going to get 3 shots at it a week and the drop rate seems to be reasonable on that, I've just decided that I'm not in a rush. I'm kind of just going to let it drop when it drops, because I think I'll get there. If I get to like within the final few weeks of the season and it still hasn't happened for some odd reason, which I think would be unusual, then I'll really go at it. But for that reason, like Matt, that kind of nice surprise sort of jolt that you had when it actually did occur, I expect I'll probably get that at some point, and I don't feel like I need to, because I mean we're only like a month into the season at the moment. Like this is super early as far as that kind of stuff goes. So
all of those grinds I think are set up to be long term as well. Like they're
it's the players that fuck it up.
Like that's expansion content, not season content, right? And all the seasonal content, like my understanding of it henceforth is basically like it's not going to be just 3 months and it goes. It's there for good, so that everybody still continues to have access to that content. But then new seasons will come in and they will just have more stuff to do. Which is one of the reasons why, like I don't dislike the fact that they've removed so much content, because I know this year they're going to be adding in a crap ton more. And then when the next expansion comes out, they'll probably wipe off the slate of all of those seasons of content, and we'll start over with a clean slate in a new area and build up again. But like the fact that I can go back, the Legend Lost Sectors aren't going to go anywhere. The more difficult hunts aren't going to go anywhere. And so rushing out a grind for those isn't a big deal. I think with the when I got stuck in that 15 run necrotic grasps thing, it was basically just like I'm pissed off, right? Like I'm actually angry at the game now, and I'm not going to let it beat me. Like that's kind of the headspace I found myself in. And it sucks to get into that, which is why with the raids, like it works just as well with Deepstone Crypt. The Deepstone Crypt is just fun to do.
That just made me think of something that happened to me earlier today. So this is totally off tangent. I was playing Mortal Kombat, and I played a guy in ranked, and he beat me with like my main character, and I was using a different character. So I swapped characters so I was using my main that he was also using. He beat me again. So then I went to friendly match, and we proceeded to play 15 friendly matches over and over again because I couldn't beat him. And only after I beat him, I quit.
Oh, wow.
Like we went like, oh, and he just kept going as well because he must have just been like, yeah, bring it on. So I just was like butting my head against this guy for like an hour, and then finally I beat him. I was like, yep, okay, I'm done.
What you're describing is my childhood journey of learning to play chess with my dad. Yeah, exactly the same sort of thing.
It just made me think of that. Sorry, man. Like you're talking about grinding.
Yeah, no. Like I can totally see it. Like that was very much the mood that I was kind of in, right? Like the moment I got what I wanted, I'm like, fuck that, I'm not touching it again for a couple of days. Like, this just had me angry. And I dislike that feeling. It's part of the reason why I ended up really disliking the hunt for anarchy in the end. Like I just stopped doing the raid because I was just like, I'm just frustrated now. It's just become a frustrating slog rather than an enjoyable piece of content. But because there's no rush to get those things now, it's like, well, that content's not going to go anywhere. Like if I stop doing it today, like I'm still going to have it there next week to give it a shot. So
100%. Yeah. And huge credit to Bungie too on the raid front for introducing that new currency system where you can buy extra rewards at the end of the raid from the raid chest. The Spoils of War thing is such a great idea. I'm really happy they did that.
Such a cool addition, for sure.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. I was going to mention I had one rage moment at Destiny this week, and it's because quite possibly my favourite emote in the entire game got added. And it was on the real money sort of selection for silver. And I very rarely spend sort of real money on Destiny sort of cosmetics. Like it's not something I tend to do. I've done it like a couple of times before, but not for anything massive. But this one emote turned up, and I'm just like, fuck, this is so good. I need to get this. So I purchased the silver to grab the emote, and I had there was a bit of a PayPal sort of issue that happened, and I obviously had the transaction go through, but the silver hadn't appeared in game yet. And I sort of left it and waited an hour or so, and I saw it appear, but by then I was in another activity, so I decided I'd sort of leave it until later in the evening. Now this is on Tuesday evening, where it's reset night for us. And I was expecting reset, as it typically is, to be sort of 1 a.m. our time of Wednesday morning. But they had pulled that forward because they were doing maintenance. And it caught me off guard, and the game went down, and I couldn't log back on. And I thought, fuck, the thing I wanted to buy is probably going to get rotated out of the selection this week. And lo and behold, I log in today and it's gone. It's in the Bright Dust area where you have to actually purchase it using the other in-game currency, which I don't have enough for. I'm like, fuck! I'm so angry.
They made that change because people were complaining about the fact that some items were only appearing for real money and they'd never appear in Bright Dust. So the cycle now is it appears for silver, and then next week it's okay if I can't get it for silver, I can get it for Bright Dust next week.
I just wish it was available for both. Like I would just throw money at it right now just to get it, but now I can't actually.
Can't you buy Bright Dust? Can't you convert silver to Bright Dust?
No, I don't think you can.
No.
Yeah,
you used to be able to, because one of the things that I noticed was I was going through a lot of the exotic ghosts and that sort of thing. I really want that, but it's only from Eververse, and it's from Eververse Bright engrams.
Yeah.
And
people used to buy the engrams. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You can't buy the engrams anymore, which is mega weird. And there's not enough engrams that drop, and you can get duplicates. So it's just very odd that there's no reasonable way to kind of go get those things in a speedy kind of fashion. It's kind of have to hope that they eventually turn up. It's all very odd.
I'll tell you which emote it was. It was you guys might have seen it. It was It was like a DJ sort of one where he was actually at a deck and headphones on and that sort of stuff. But the coolest thing about it, and I've seen a couple of people use it in the tower, is that when you use it around other people, everybody rips out dance emotes, and it just creates this weird kind of social event where it occurs. And it's actually got its own music as well. Like it's not just the visual.
I noticed that. I previewed it in the store, and the fact that it actually plays music is pretty cool.
Is awesome.
It's really good.
Yeah. So anyway, just a stupid thing, but I thought it was cool. So yeah. Anyway, disappointing. Matt, you mentioned. Not Matt. Adrian, you mentioned you've been playing MK a bit more as well. Anything in particular you're spending your time on? How are the new characters treating you?
Yeah, good. Still playing it as normal, getting along well, enjoying the ranked combat. I did get one of the skins I was chasing. You know how I mentioned you could do the thing where you put in the code. It has created a Pavlovian sort of behavior in me, because this input can be put in at 10 minutes past every second hour. So it is like 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 6, like every 2 hours throughout the day. So it's added this weird kind of, when I'm sitting at home, I'm always like, oh shit, I haven't missed it. It's okay. It's all right. It's coming up. And like, oh shit. And then a few times I have missed it. I'll be like, damn it, I missed it. Just because I was living my life and not like checking in on this arbitrary thing every 2 hours. Yeah. And part of that is because every time you put in the code, the reward skin that you unlock is random. And you don't have to commit to it until you see it. So like you have to spend in-game currency that you earn through fighting to purchase the skin, or you have to beat the character to then earn the skin. But the resources that you spend, you don't have to spend them until you know what it is, which is good. But it means that like every 2 hours I've been checking like, I don't want that one. I don't want that one. Oh, if I get another Jade skin, I'm gonna lose my shit, because the amount of times it's been Jade over and over and over again, and I don't care about Jade.
So you're getting pretty jaded.
But I finally got one, because there was a season Mortal Kombat where all the rewards for the ranked skins were insect themed, and one of the main character has like a stag beetle skin, and I want that skin so bad. But I got one of the other insect ones, which is also cool, so I was very happy.
Yeah.
That was a very long, stupid explanation for it.
No, but it got to the same ending that I was at a second ago, which is these chase cosmetics that you have to invest in. Yeah.
But like I said before, the good thing about it is that, like, literally for years, people have been wanting a way to get these skins, because it does seasons of ranked combat. So, like I think we're currently in season 15 or something of Mortal Kombat 11. So each of those 15 seasons has had 3 unique skins for that season, and they're unpurchasable in any context. You cannot buy them in any way other than earning them through that ranked system. And so for years on, you can go back and find posts where people are saying, oh, is there a way to get the skin? No, you can only get it through Combat League, blah, blah, blah. So now that they've opened it up so that there is another way, but it's still not easy, it's kind of a good half measure, I think.
Yeah.
That's all.
So what exactly happens every 2 hours specifically? I know you've explained this before, but I'm still a little kind of hazy.
There's a menu screen with towers, and all it is every 2 hours a comet will fly by in the background of the menu screen. You put in the code, and it summons an additional tower where you then fight the character whose skin you want to earn. That's all it is. But the code is tricky, so you have to be accurate and fast, because the comet will fly by in the background pretty quickly, and if you miss the code, then you miss the opportunity. So
right,
that's all it is. But.
Okay, so like a currency reset sort of thing almost.
Yeah.
All right. Well, is anybody else got any games that they want to chat about tonight? Because I've got one to add, if not. So aside from sort of playing more Bugsnax and Miles this week, there is one more game that I've fallen heavily back into when I'm not destinying, and that is Genshin Impact. So I've actually invested a shitload more time into Genshin this week, because there's a big chunk of content that dropped while Destiny expansion was launching, and I kind of wanted to see where it went, because the story stuff in that game has, in the late sort of game, actually gotten quite enjoyable for me. So So this is part of their first sort of big post-launch patch where they've added kind of the new chapter for sort of the political intrigue sort of arc of the story that's going on, where there's basically like a god that gets assassinated, and it's a bit of a detective kind of just drama to try and work out who's responsible for it. Which sort of parties stand to gain the most from it, and that kind of stuff. A couple of new characters get introduced, which end up sort of becoming playable characters later on as well. And both of them are pretty freaking awesome, which is really cool. This is one of the ones up on screen now. So Tartaglia, he's like a hydro sort of bow and melee character who sort of plays like a pretty big role in the story. And he's like a jack of all trades, which is really interesting. And Zhongli, who's like another Geo character who can actually sort of create these giant sort of monoliths in the middle of the battlefield, which allow you to sort of jump up and climb on them and get like an aerial advantage, which is really funny. So the game. I completely understand, people's motivations for falling off it if they have, and it definitely is a grind. Like I think, don't expect to jump into this one and get your fill in a short amount of time, because it certainly takes a time investment to continue to get stuff out of it. But look, I'm kind of there where I'm at the point where I can dive in a bit, every couple of days and just really enjoy it. And I've made significant progress that sort of helps in my enjoyment. So. Yeah.
I'm just disappointed because I thought you were going to say Final Fantasy VII Remake.
No, I will get back to that at some point. I've resolved with myself that I want to finish the PS5 games on my plate before I go back to some of the PS4 ones. Partly because the storage on that system is going to be such a fucking problem.
Oh, yeah.
Because, oh my god, you can't fit that much on it. So, yeah. And I kind of want to play Demon's Souls as well after our recent discussions on it too. So, whether I dive into Demon's Souls before getting back to Final Fantasy, I'm not actually sure. We'll see. Yeah. But I got Cyberpunk in, tomorrow as well?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. What time?
12 hours.
What time does that go live, actually? Is that
10 a.m.
I think it's like 8 a.m. for us, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Tomorrow, 8 a.m.
Tomorrow, 8 a.m. Well, then.
Oh my God.
Yep. That's it. Maybe a tiny bit before work and then wait till the evening sort of thing. That'll be interesting. So... All right. Well, anyway, that's this time in gaming. So let's dive into some industry news. Matt, would you like to start tonight? Because this was a fun one today.
Yeah. This was really cool. So 343 Industries have put out a report that's like every month they do like an Inside Infinite, and they kind of talk about what's happening with Halo Infinite. So today, Joseph Staten, who they've just recently brought back on to be Staten. He used to be working on Halo. Jason Statham.
Trade buddy.
Yes, Jason Statham, the writer of Halo 1, 2, 3, and ODST, and Reach.
Matt, are you sure?
Am I sure?
Yeah, because Jason Statham is.
No, I'm stating the facts, Luke.
Okay. Go on.
Okay. Anyway,
Freddy versus Jason. Sorry, last one.
God, I'm glad we're ending this podcast.
Thank God. Put it down.
Yeah. So he was basically hopping in to give an update. Basically acknowledging that, hey, yep, the game is coming out next year. Which is coming out in fall, which is spring for us. So basically September through November.
Bit later than we might have otherwise thought, but yeah.
No, I think they've gone back to the drawing board with a lot of the campaign stuff. Is the impression that I kind of get.
Yeah.
The whole update actually reveals a bunch of stuff like concept art. Well, not actually concept art. It's actually in-game screenshots from different environments in the world. Weapons and how they kind of look in Infinite, armor, which I love the direction they've kind of taken the armor. It looks so good.
It does look nice.
I'm not sure how I feel about the whole armor coating system, but at the same time, the armor coating system is basically what Destiny is with shaders. Only I don't know if it applies to the entire armor set or if it applies per item on the armor set. It's drastically more customizable. It's reach levels of customization with some extra stuff they kind of say in the post. And yeah, like it actually sounds like it sounds really cool. Like the stuff they're doing sounds really cool. But visually, I love it. Like it feels like they've taken Halo Reach and they've made it look modern. And Reach was easily my favorite looking Halo game personally.
Yeah. Is it just me, or does the armor look like a whole nother level of chunky compared to what it was before?
Oh yes, 100%. Like in 4 and 5, it's really organic. In 1, 2, and 3, it's kind of cartoony, and then in Reach, it's this thing that's like, it looks like pieces of tank have been kind of strapped onto the Spartans.
Exactly that.
And that's exactly like how they wanted it kind of designed. Was like, you know, you're basically a walking tank. And I love that design. Like it looks so kind of like it's very military, right? Whereas when we start getting into the more organic, it was more like Halo was originally inspired by Gundam. And it kind of showed. Whereas when we kind of started moving away from that, I don't really know what they were kind of influenced by, but armor all looked really organic. It looked like organic, like metal muscle kind of sitting on top of Spartans. I just disliked that kind of look. But yeah, visually mega happy. It's cool that Joseph's on the project, but whenever this happens with a project where it gets into such upheaval that it gets pushed back repeatedly and you know, they've had to pull in new directors and everything, that scares the shit out of me. So hopefully the game is good. But there is something else out of it that gives me a lot of hope. And it actually gives me hope for Destiny. And it's the fact that Halo Infinite, when it comes out, is free to play for multiplayer. Which means that Destiny has to fucking pick up its game in its multiplayer area. Because Crucible's garbage. Like, let's be entirely honest. It's garbage. It hasn't
sucks.
It has not gotten the love it should get. There needs to be a season of the Crucible this year. And if they don't do that, I think they're going to lose a lot of players to Halo Infinite if Halo Infinite has the kind of combat that Halo players enjoyed in 1, 2, 3 and Reach. So, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
It'll be interesting how it goes.
Just get rid of Crucible. Make a separate Destiny game that's Destiny Crucible.
Honestly, I would actually kind of agree with that. I think that, like, if it was basically like, here's a second executable, it's Destiny Crucible, it's all the same weapons, it's your character and everything like that, but the balance was completely separated, that's exactly what it needs. So, yeah.
I think it's probably the first time with this expansion that conversation has begun in earnest compared to what it was at before. Because of how different the stuff they've added has kind of impacted the experience on either end. So
yeah. I love
Hunters, man.
Exactly. I was about to say, like, I love how the abilities make you feel when you play Destiny, but I don't love how the abilities make you feel when they're used against you. Like, you feel powerful, but when you go into Crucible, like, that power is immediately kind of snatched away by certain other classes. Or certain other weapons. Like, you know, a weapon gets introduced and it becomes the new meta, and just overnight, like, Crucible becomes massively toxic to try and engage in. Whereas Halo completely avoids that because, like, everything's the same. Everybody has access to the exact same tools. Like, there's, you know, they have access to the exact same loadouts and everything like that. There's no weird unlocks. There's no weird classes or anything. And I think that's really appealing to people that want a PvP game, right? Like, that appeals to me. I enjoy Halo combat, but I don't enjoy Destiny combat when it comes to PvP. So it'd be interesting to see how that kind of maybe pushes Bungie to rethink how they approach Crucible. Like, I hope it does.
I have a view that too much of the same is not a good thing, though. Like, I don't think it's necessarily a good idea for one company to see what's successful for another and say we want to emulate that as closely as possible. Like, I think having a different flavor of ice cream to try is a good thing. So
I'm not saying that at all.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm saying. Like, I what I'm saying is that I think they need to look at Halo and they need to be worried about Crucible.
Right. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, they need to do something with Crucible. Not that they need to make Crucible like Halo, but that they need to do something about Crucible. And they've put it off for years, pretty much. It needs some love, and it needs it desperately, pretty much is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
I don't even do the Crucible rewards anymore every week. I just ignore them.
I completely avoid them. Gambit, 100%. I enjoy Gambit. but Chris will know. Hell no.
No, fair enough. Well, I'll dive into the next news story because this is, again, pretty current week sort of relevance. So Cyberpunk 2077, as we've just sort of mentioned, is dropping tomorrow. So 10th of December. It's finally coming out, or is it? We'll wait and see. I saw that Christian today on his Facebook page actually posted up when you started talking about this game, like how
2,888 days ago is when I first posted about Cyberpunk.
Jesus, that's a long freaking time. Oh man, I actually had a list that I found today of some of the longest incubating games in history, and interestingly, Cyberpunk sort of being that there's 8 years in it, it wasn't actually even that close to the top of the list because things like The Last Guardian and Duke Nukem Forever, top the list, quite ahead of it. The other one that was on
Final
there,
Fantasy 15 was pretty close, right?
15 wasn't on the list I saw, but I know that was quite a long time as well. I think that the one that could be in the running to be the longest is actually Beyond Good and Evil 2, because that was first announced in 2006, but it had this weird kind of break in the middle where it was kind of cancelled and then it wasn't. So, but then you've also got Star Citizen, so who knows what the fuck's happening with Star Citizen. That's a...
Nobody will ever beat Duke Nukem Forever.
Yeah, I don't know. That was only 10 years, man. That was
only 10 years. It's true.
Yeah, 10 years. It seems like a long time.
Half-Life 3.
Well, if it ever actually happens.
StarCraft Ghost.
Yeah, that'll never fucking happen though. Yeah. So anyway, that all aside, assuming that Cyberpunk does come out tomorrow, obviously reviews are starting to hit online for it. There's been quite a few of them have gone up in the last 48 hours. General consensus seems to be that the game is very good, but suffers from a lot of bugs. So, yep. And I'll leave it at that because we won't want to spoil anything. But the one thing that has sort of come out today as like potentially a big issue is that there was a editor from Game Informer by the name of Liana Rupert who reported while she was actually writing the review that she was suffering epileptic seizures as a result of basically her time in the game. And
did she say she personally actually suffered seizures?
She said that
she was just concerned about it?
No, she said that she personally did. So she actually mentioned that she had, like, I'm not familiar with the medical terminology, but she said that she had like one grand mal seizure. I think was the terminology she used. And she felt several moments where she was close to another one. And she felt that her seizure was caused by lights that flash when her character put on a headset to experience brain dance, which is that thing in game which is kind of like the Cyberpunk version of like the Arkham Detective Vision, which you use to sort of, replay stuff that's happened in different environments to solve crimes and things like that. But I mean, when you think about a game like Cyberpunk, like the actual nature of the visuals in that game is that there's a lot of neon lights, there's a lot of flashing, it's like high-tech environments with a lot of, sort of street light and, there's ambient stuff, sure, but there's a lot of sort of, techno kind of rave party environments and that sort of stuff that you could be navigating through. Even a flash of a car's headlights, I'm not sure exactly, how risky some of that stuff is, but it's been called out as a potential big problem, a huge risk because of the fact that it's happened to one person now reportedly and potentially a couple of others. But the call out here is that they're surprised that with that being as big risk it is as it is, it actually got through certification. But on my sort of view, I don't know if they test for that kind of stuff specifically. It seems like a very specific thing for them to means test against when it comes to. But
there's some people that I've seen theorizing that part of the reason why the game was delayed was because they were trying to push this past. Basically, whenever you submit a game to a console, they will test out a bunch of stuff, and you have to flag things that you think that they should be concerned about.
Okay.
And they will also just have testers play the game. And the what she kind of explains with the thing that kind of brought on the epileptic seizure or the epileptic fit was basically a headset that you put on that actually emulates one that she got tested with. Like it seems very, very similar, almost to the point like she says in the article that she feels like it was almost modeled 1-to-1 kind of based on that thing. and so it seems very possible that that they may have actually highlighted, hey, there's a potential for epileptic seizures with this. They showed it to the console holders, and then they've gone no, and they've basically had to put up an argument. That's part of the reason why it was delayed. But that's theorizing. Yeah, so they have actually. There's a little follow up to this as well. They have actually identified. They've agreed that there is an issue here. They need to put in separate. So in the EULA, so the end user license agreement, there is actually a warning in there about epileptic seizures, but it's buried in the EULA. Like,
and that's a very general kind of thing too. Like, you see that almost every sort of game to some extent. Like, yeah.
So they're looking at a more permanent solution. So the actual tweet basically says, thank you for bringing this up. We're working on adding a separate warning in the game, aside from the one that exists in the EULA, regarding a more permanent solution. The dev team is currently exploring that and will be implementing it as soon as possible.
Yeah.
So they have kind of recognized it. Yeah. So
Rupert, the sort of editor, also sort of explained in her review that the in-game headset that is used for the brain dancers, it specifically features like a rapid-firing sort of onslaught of red and white blinking LEDs, which is very similar to the actual device that neurologists use in real life to trigger a seizure when they need to trigger one for diagnosis purposes. So, that one, it's kind of a bit on the nose, given that there's that closer connection as well. So but there is stuff apparently in the sort of in-game controls to sort of reduce that kind of stuff. So you can actually like there's a glitch effect when say the Keanu Reeves Johnny Silverhand character actually appears to you, which you can actually change the way that appears on screen. To remove the flashing sort of nature of that. And some of the stuff in the HUD you can actually tone down or turn off entirely, which could be potential trigger risks. So there is some stuff in there, but I think this is just a case of they didn't cover themselves as thoroughly as perhaps they should have, and it's gotten out and created quite the media storm about it. So
it's weird because the game, like, without having actually played it yet, and I am very much looking forward to playing it. But it seems in so many ways to be like 2 steps forward and then 3 steps back in some areas. Like that is just, that's such an issue that every single game has to deal with. And it feels like a newbie mistake to have in something that's so blatantly going to cause epileptic, fits in people, right? Like epileptic events. It's just weird.
I have to say, in general, like, I've actually been not necessarily surprised, but kind of disappointed to see over the last few days just the amount of people that are picking this thing apart before it's even out for some of the most vapid, fucking petty reasons that have just inserted themselves into the conversation for the sake of criticizing something that they see some sort of perceived fault with without actually having played the game themselves. And I'm not going to put myself in the position where I'm going to defend everything that CD Projekt Red does, because they've obviously got some issues with regards to their crunch culture and some of the stances they've taken publicly with regards to sort of other issues in the past as well. But I do feel that the general discourse at the moment is an overwhelming number of people looking for reasons to hate on this game.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
Yep. I think there's plenty of valid criticisms. This seizure thing is bad and needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
But there are people who, they're like hounding for the next thing to get outraged at CD Projekt about, because that's like a narrative that's developed, is they're this terrible company that does all these awful things, which, again, valid criticisms of them. But there's an echo chamber for sure.
I pointed this out recently when there was like this tweet thread that was going around with people picking at Miles Morales and the way it was doing reflections on the sides of buildings, and the fact that developers had to actually respond and be like, yes, Spider-Man's reflection on the building is distant from where Spider-Man's actually holding onto it, but here's the science behind exactly why it's actually scientifically accurate.
Yeah. And
I kind of pointed out at that point in time that, like, since probably earlier, but it feels like it's become more of a thing now. But like, since Sword and Shield, it feels like, somebody has an issue with one thing that the game does, and then they start picking it apart in every other potential way that they can find.
Yeah,
right?
they launch a crusade. Yeah.
And it just, like, it's such shitty behavior, and it happens so often now.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, it's not great.
The reason why I intensely dislike it as a general rule too is that it's people who don't sort of serve the conversation in any way other than to make people feel guilty for wanting to play it.
Yeah.
So, and I don't think that the consumers are necessarily the right target for that, because they're not the ones who are on the decision making side of a lot of this stuff, and costing them the enjoyment is not particularly constructive. So,
and in the end, it's a very tiny segment of people who are even going to hear about these criticisms anyway. Like even this seizure thing, like of the millions of people who are going to play this game, I reckon like less than 1% of them will actually even hear about this.
Yeah. Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah.
It's good that the discussions happen though, because I think it's good to highlight the risk. But I think it's run its course, and kind of, as long as they address it as they say they're going to, this doesn't need to be something that's brought up and dragged through again for months to come. So
sure.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of very valid criticisms about the game and the way it handles a lot of topics, but at the end of the day, right? Like, the conversation doesn't need to linger on those things. Like, the game's out now, and like I'm sure you can find more valid criticisms by playing it. So
a lot of these conversations just disappear once games come out as well. Like, so there's been so many examples where in the lead up to a game, there's all these concerns about, it's going to represent this poorly, it's going to do this badly. The game comes out, and then the conversation just completely changes to something different, and all of that pre-release stuff just gets forgotten.
Yeah, I honestly think that sometimes it's calling out opportunity costs. Like, people want to see things in the game, and they're disappointed that it's not. But then when you step back and look at it in a sort of wider fashion, you're like, well, where does this actually appear in any other fucking game? It's like, well, it generally doesn't. So why are we judging this one on different merits?
It's the whole thing of, it's cool to hate new cool thing that people like.
100%.
Like that. There is a lot of that.
Yeah. Anyway, on the topic of being cool, Christian, who's not cool?
Not cool. So on the topic of people hating things, I'm going to just do a quick little rant about how Nintendo is treating their own fans.
Oh, yeah.
So ongoing over the last couple of weeks, there's been a running battle between Nintendo and the Smash Melee community. So Melee is it's 19 years old now, but it's still the most popular version of Smash Brothers in the esports scene. And Nintendo has been trying to kind of smother the scene in different ways for a while, because they only want people to focus on the newest Smash Bros. Game, right? So if Nintendo could have their way, everyone would just be playing Smash Ultimate. They would, I'm sure, if they could get away with it, they'd literally break into everyone's houses and smash their Melee CDs if they could.
Smash. It'd be a self-fulfilling prophecy based on name alone.
It would, yeah. Like going right back to years ago, Nintendo said that Evo wasn't allowed to broadcast Smash Melee tournament because they were using a mod called Project M, which is just like a kind of tweaked community mod where they just changed a couple of little balance things here, little visual improvements, some community bug fixes, but it is an emulated version of the game, and Nintendo said no to that. But there was such an outrage there that Nintendo did actually reverse their position on that. But what's happened now is, because of COVID, the communities had to switch to a different emulated version of Melee called Slippy that uses online play. So it has online play using quite good rollback netcode. And there was an upcoming tournament that was going to be using Slippy, and Nintendo basically sent them a cease and desist saying, stop this tournament, you're not allowed to run the tournament because it's using an emulated version of the game. Now, all of these players, I'm sure, have their own copies of Smash Melee. These are people that, probably have multiple copies of the game. So it's not like they've stolen the game without paying for it. And it's a situation where it's a whole community of people that cannot play with each other any other way, because you just simply cannot meet up to have a fighting game tournament at the moment. Online is the only alternative, and Melee doesn't have any native online. So it's just really shitty of Nintendo to ruin people's enjoyment basically this way of their own product, kind of like, and generating such negative reception around it, when it'd be so easy just to let them play the damn game. Like, it's not a hard thing just to let people play your game. And there's been other things in the news too, like there was a Smash Brothers community member named Etika who committed suicide a couple of years ago. And there's basically his like fan community created like custom Joy-Con shells they call them Eticons, and part of the proceeds from those Joy-Con shells go to like a charity, mental health charity. And Nintendo recently sent them a like cease and desist, saying like stop selling these Joy-Con shells. And like to be clear, it's just a plastic shell. It's not that they're not selling their own Joy-Cons. Yeah. And so that of course generated a lot of negativity too. Don't send money to charity for this like fan of ours who committed suicide. So Nintendo they need to learn how to chill when it comes to online stuff.
Yeah, failure to read the room for sure. Yeah,
it's so weird because like, you know, they again, like I said it with Cyberpunk, I'll say it again with Nintendo. Like they take 2 steps forward and there's 3 steps back, like every single time, right? Like, you know, they made gigantic leaps with how they handled stuff with indies, because up until the Switch, like Nintendo just didn't talk to indies, like they didn't give a shit, and now they do, and they've done this awesome outreach work, and then meanwhile, like, you know, major dedicated fan communities are given more and more reason to not interact with their platform. And like I know you, Christian, like the way that Nintendo handles old games, you know, like the only way that you're allowed to play them is if Nintendo chooses to re-release them.
And now they're doing it for a limited time, which is just mind-boggling. This whole Mario and Fire Emblem remake limited time thing is that's crazy.
It feels like they do what a lot of companies do, but they take it to an extreme, right? Where it's like companies will protect their IP. It's like, no, you can't use that game because we might be planning a sequel or something. But with Nintendo, it's just really like, oh, we're not playing any sequels. We just might want to re-release it at some point to make some extra cash. You know, nothing will be changed other than, you know, hey, Super Smash Bros. Melee is now playing on your Nintendo Switch and it has online multiplayer. Like that'll be it, right? Like that's all you'll get. It won't be a remaster or anything. It'll just be the same game with some stuff slapped on.
They really are the video game Disney.
Yeah.
They're like family friendly, but then super litigious and like lawsuits left and right enforcing the copyright. And there's one more part of the story I missed out too, which is that in response to this tournament being cancelled, the Splatoon community has come to the defense of the Melee community. There's like a North America finals for Splatoon, and a bunch of the players changed their names to like Free Melee, blah blah blah, or just like protest names, and then Nintendo cancelled the finals for that tournament. Wow. That was their own tournament. Like that's a Nintendo hosted official tournament that they cancelled because their players were like changing their screen names to support the Melee community.
This has got sort of reminiscent sort of feels of the whole Hearthstone Blitzchung incident in certain respects.
Yeah. The funny thing with that is like, the Blitzchung thing, sure, it was terrible what Blizzard did. I'm never going to excuse what they did, but they at least had an outside pressure, like the Chinese market and investors. They put pressure on Blizzard to do this. Blizzard were acting due to an outside pressure. Yeah. Nintendo's doing this to themselves. Like nobody's telling Nintendo. They're not scaring any market away or any investors or anything. They're just cutting their own fucking nose off.
Yeah. It seems super dumb. How long ago was it that you two attended that in-person sort of fighting game tournament here in WA?
That was like the start of this year. That must have been, or even earlier. That might have been like November last year.
So I was going to wager that there hasn't been anything of its like since then, given the year that has been COVID. Or
I've seen updates.
Yeah, they have. In the last couple of months, they have resumed locals here.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. So they're not doing like interstate like people coming over or anything, but they are doing like locals within whatever guidelines have been like present at the time here. So.
Yeah. Well, let's hope that other parts of the world can sort of claw back some semblance of normality when it comes to that stuff eventually. Yeah.
Yeah.
Certainly not until it's the right time. Cool. All right. Well, that's all the news we had for tonight. I think it's time that we dive into our real sort of topic for tonight. The big one, the thing we've been waiting all year to start getting into and discussing, and that is our party favorites. So 2020's party favorites, part 1, because we got doing this next episode as well, because there's too many categories to sort of cover in one show. That's for damn sure. So now, as we do every year, We have generally somewhere between 8 to 10 categories that we go through in greater or lesser detail, depending on what we want to discuss each year. We tend to vary the categories a little bit each year, but there are some mainstays. Like we're always going to have our party favorite of the year, which is essentially our favorite game, of the entire year for each of us. But this time, and to kick off tonight, we've got 2 returning categories and we've got 2 new ones. And I think that it is only right for Adrian to introduce the first category because it's the one that he picked and it's one of the new ones. So what should we start with tonight, Adrian?
Credit where it's due. I did pick Christian's brain for this as well because I was struggling to think of a category. So I shouldn't take all the credit for it. But the first category tonight is the character you would most like to punch.
From the last year.
From the last year of gaming. So which character in any video game that you've played do you most want to just smash in the face? Like climb into the game through your screen and just
lay the smack down.
Just give yourself an uppercut.
Disintegrate their skull upon the end of your arm.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's a great category. I'm a big fan of this.
It is really good. I struggled.
Mm-hmm.
You said before the show, Luke, that you had a character that you thought that we would all change to if we hadn't already picked it.
Not necessarily change to, but I think you'll agree. I think you'll absolutely agree. Yeah.
I'd like to see you go first then, because I'm super curious about what yours is.
Okay. So mine goes back away, and this is from sort of much earlier in the year. But we did talk about it a significant amount on the show. And I think that we would all agree that this was one of the worst parts of like something that we didn't enjoy about an otherwise decent game at the time. And that is the character of Zipper T. Rabbit from Animal Crossing New Horizons, which was part of the Easter update. So this yellow motherfucker. Yeah. Zipper was a son of a bitch, and I wanted to beat the shit out of him every single time I had to interact with him. It wasn't just the fact that the Easter event in Animal Crossing New Horizons was such a letdown in terms of how repetitive and how crap it was, and the stuff that it took out of our enjoyment of the main game. But Zipper, just with his ever so joyful, bouncing around, never stopping. Every other fucking person on the island was just, non-stop talking about him. I was sick to death of this idiot by the end of this thing, and holy shit, I wanted to kill him. There was a lot of memes that went online as well, like of people sort of dressing up into, murder overalls and, coming out behind him with an axe and that sort of stuff. And I found them quite entertaining. Like the fan community that actually wanted to outright murder Zipper, I think was a testament to how sort of hated he was. But I fucking hated this character. I wanted to punch him so bad. So, yeah.
That's an excellent pick.
I will segue because mine is Animal Crossing related as well. But I actually got the game later than everyone else. So I only just caught the last couple of days of the Easter event. So I didn't have that relationship with the rabbit. In fact, I didn't even know his name. But my pick for most punchable is Isabel.
Ooh,
really?
Yeah.
Controversial.
I want to cave her face in. No, I want to collapse her face inward.
It's because she's a dog, isn't it?
No, with such tectonic force that it creates a black hole. That's how much I want to destroy her. From the marketing to the fact she is a dog, but also if I have to wake up one more morning and she has no news for me, I swear to God. That's my reason for most punchable.
So it's such a happy family game. It seems like a couple of us at least have got some real pent-up rage issues with this thing.
So the funny thing is that the character that I almost picked was also an Animal Crossing character. And it was neither of the one you both picked.
Was it Red? I bet you nearly picked Red.
Nope.
Nope? Okay. Interesting.
Nope.
Who did you nearly pick then?
Raymond.
Raymond.
Oh, he's one of the villagers.
Raymond. He's one of the villagers, but the reason I want to punch his face is because everybody fucking lost their shit over him.
Yeah.
He's a brand new villager.
The little grey cat.
With the cat.
Yeah.
But he's also, he's a fucking smug character as well.
He had the weird coloured eye, like one eye was different to the other one.
Yeah.
But so who was your actual pick then?
My actual pick was the Fall Guy from Fall Guys. I just want to punch the shit out of it.
Blank canvas.
I don't like. For one, they look just like mega punchable, right? Like they look like
do.
those wobbly punching bag guys that you could get as a kid. Yeah, but not only that,
but they don't fall down.
I don't know how much of it is the fact that they look punchable, and how much of it is just that the fucking Fall Guys Twitter is goddamn loathsome. But like
Twitter,
I just feel like, yes, their Twitter is just horrible. Like, it's just memes. And I just imagine these annoying little blobs making all of these fucking meme posts.
Not people,
and I just
the
want
blobs
to
are doing it.
cave their face in. I dislike them greatly.
I empathize with you a lot because this reminds me of Minions.
Yes.
That's how I feel about
100%.
Minions.
But I think it's
Minions.
also... I think it's also just the game as well. Like, just so much about it is like, you know, it's Fortnite light, and like, oh no, I hate it. I want to.
But it sounds like your problems with the game, not necessarily the character in particular. So
Yes. But
They're the
all of them are
avatar.
punchable.
Yeah.
All of them are punchable. Look at the Fall Guy and tell me he's not punchable. Okay?
Oh, totally. But it's like it'd be like punching one of those wacky inflatable arm waving tube men. You wouldn't get far.
It just means I have more than one to punch.
Yeah.
Oh god, no. It's a Minion charm with my name on it. Is that from Disneyland?
Universal Studios. When I was on my honeymoon with Shantae at Universal Studios, there's like a Minion section with paraphernalia, and there's a keyring with Christian's name on it. The first thing I did was send Christian a picture of it.
Outrageous.
That's
He
sensational.
loves Minions,
Perfect.
guys. If anyone at home wants to send Minion stuff to Christian, I'll give you his home address.
No.
I will send you the money for postage.
Or what's even better, actually, you know what's better? Don't send him something. Just tag him in those Facebook mum minions. Like about like it's
Even
always
better.
1 o'clock somewhere, and there's a minion like. Mwah.
Yeah. Super,
Top shot.
super punchable.
Well, I can't pick Minions, sadly, for my pick. I did struggle a bit with this category because I was tempted to pick some cast members from The Last of Us 2, but it didn't feel right punching any of them in the end because
They're also
a lot of them
miserable
are
already.
they're miserable already. A lot of them get what they deserve in the end, and a lot of them are like young women, which doesn't feel quite right.
I nearly
They've
picked,
also had worse,
Ellie, actually. I nearly picked Ellie.
I nearly picked Ellie, yeah.
The reason why I didn't is because I actually got to punch her, so...
True, yes, yeah. Who I picked in the end is the guy in the pig mask from the front cover of Watch Dogs Legion.
I am with you.
No,
Yes.
that guy.
There's just something about it that just pisses me off.
Does he have a name, or can we just invent one on the spot?
No, he's not a character.
Pig mask guy.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna call him Snubnub. That's his name from now on.
Snub.
It's just pig mask guy. There's just something about the kind of like try hard anti-capitalist. Like, do you get it?
Yeah.
It's a pig, capitalist
Yeah.
pig, and he's got like a cigar, but it's actually dynamite or something, and like a monocle, and it just reeks of like. It reminds me of Guy Fawkes masks. That kind of like rebellious attitude.
It's like year 12, like anarchy kind of attitude.
Yeah. And it just
Part of the reason why I actually agree with you even more is when they did the marketing campaign and they hacked all of the Microsoft Game Store, and so a whole bunch of Ubisoft games had their covers changed to the guy with the pig mask replacing main characers, and it just was so mega try-hardy. Like,
Deadpool already did that and did it way better. So
it's just this like. Ubisoft is a massive corporation, and they're making this like boardroom approved version of anarchists and like anti-capitalists, and it's just I don't like it. So
it's
punch
cartoon.
Pig Man.
especially given the year that Ubisoft had in the media, certainly not their position to cast aspersions. So Christian, my real question is, if you were given the choice, would you punch Pigman or would you punch Zipper?
Pigman, actually.
Yeah?
Yeah. Because Animal Crossing, as much as I hated Zipper, I don't want to bring that kind of energy to my island.
Not only that, but like when like the thing I love about Zipper, I don't love Zipper as a character, but the thing I love about him is the fact that when you get him just out of frame, he slumps because he's clearly putting on an act the entire time. And it's like, this guy's a fucking Disney mascot. I can't punch that person in the face. He's got a wife and kids at home.
He's like the mall,
he's like doing this for minimum wage.
He's like the mall Santa. As soon as the kids have left, he cracks out like a fresh bottle of Beam and
exactly.
a new city. Yeah.
Christian doesn't want negative vibes on his island. Meanwhile, do you remember that time you came to my island and I turned it into a concentration camp?
Yeah.
And I had pizza ovens around the border with spotlights.
No. Terrible.
Yeah.
That's why Isabel gets punched.
It's good shit.
Yep.
It's good shit.
Luke, what was yours?
Mine was Zipper. Yeah.
It was Zipper. Your pick was Zipper. Could I have a runner up for that as well? I just want to share. Fucking Paimon. I swear to God.
I expected somebody. I thought somebody was going to pick Paimon tonight. Yeah.
Dude, within 2 sentences, I wanted to cave that thing's face in. Like, I just wanted to tie it to my shoes and walk over broken glass.
So this is your like. I know Christian hates me making this comparison, but it's your Navi style sort of companion in Genshin Impact. So
it was specifically the voice actor of that character made me loathe that character like straight away.
All I will say is that I was of the same opinion as you very early on, Adrian, but she grows on you because of 2 reasons.
No.
Number 1 is because you actually just get used to it. And number 2 is because she actually becomes the butt of all of the best jokes throughout the entire game because they just constantly rag on her, and it's hilarious. So, yeah. She's a constant punchline, which actually makes it a little bit more palatable.
You've made me angry, Luke.
All right. Well, should we move on to the next category? We've got one of our other sort of fresh ones to come off this episode. And this one I believe was Christian's pick. So you want to introduce this one? Yeah.
It's another, I guess, like negatively geared question too. So we're getting all of like the downer questions or like the negative questions out of the way. This one is your best gaming schadenfreude from the year, schadenfreude, which for anybody who doesn't know is just the act of getting pleasure from somebody else's misfortune. So it can be like a character's meeting their demise that you particularly enjoyed, or something in the industry that didn't pan out well that you vicariously enjoyed for whatever reason. So best gaming schadenfreude of 2020.
It's like the way you would feel if any of the characters in the aforementioned segment actually got punched in the face.
Got punched, yeah.
I'm going to throw to Matt first for his best gaming schadenfreude of the year.
I was always going to change mine last second, not from what I originally started with, but just to the entire game as Schadenfreude. Cyberpunk 2077's numerous delays. I thought it was fucking hilarious. I loved the fact that the yellow image that they posted up to announce delays became a meme template.
That was pretty funny.
That was hilarious. And just watching all of these fanboys just losing their shit. I like every single time. Just like, mwah. So good. Fucking hilarious, 10 out of 10. And I would expand that to say like the entirety of Cyberpunk's whole news and weird edgelord marketing campaigns, and it's such a fucking try-hard game. I'm sorry. Like it is trying so fucking hard to be cool. And
I got so sick of their like Nightwire radio episode things they do, and the narrator of those is just super cringy.
Yep. I loved Keanu at E3, but I didn't love that he was attached to Cyberpunk. Like, just him walking out on stage is just like, look, remember that actor from those movies you saw as a kid? Yeah, he's in the movie. He's in the game now, and he's a fucking badass character. And fucking no. The whole game is just
that's hilarious.
Nice. Luke, what's your best gaming schadenfreude? So
mine's not actually a character within a game, although I'm sure he would like to be with the way that he carries on and tries to make himself larger than life. My favorite schadenfreude this year is actually the rise and fall of Dr. Disrespect. So,
yeah,
this was a hilarious one. So, one of the big sort of pieces of news that sort of surrounded this throughout the year, around the middle of the year, I think it was June when this kind of went down, was it was around the time that Microsoft's Mixer and also Facebook Gaming were making some big moves and actually poaching top talent from Twitch and throwing ridiculous amounts of money at them to actually move off the platform. And Ninja was one of them. I think Ninja got signed by Mixer for like a $10 million plus deal or something like that. It was crazy amounts of money for multiple years. And Facebook Gaming nabbed. I can't remember if it was Facebook that nabbed Shroud. Who was another, like, a really high-profile FPS streamer who did a lot of the same sort of stuff that Dr. Disrespect did. But there was other notable sort of names that got poached from Twitch, and it was a huge thing around that time because the amount of money exchanging hands was just incredible. And Dr. Disrespect, or Guy Beam as his IRL name is, he basically doubled down and decided to stay on Twitch, even though he reportedly had a bunch of these opportunities where he could have jumped ship and taken the money and run. Because, I mean, he mentioned at the time, I think, that he was more sort of worried about the impact to his viewership if he sort of actually did move off platform and thought that it would actually be a net negative over a long period of time as opposed to the positive. But then we kind of know what happened next. Like, Microsoft actually shut down Mixer. And as a result of that, Ninja in particular found himself in a position where Microsoft actually basically cut his contract short, paid it out in full. So Ninja made a huge windfall with doing fuck all work in a very short period of time, which Dr. Disrespect was bitching about because it was an opportunity that he could have grabbed and just made bank in no time flat and then gone back to Twitch afterwards. But he missed the opportunity. So there was that he missed out on, which I thought was just delicious. It was like, beautiful. But then, like, a couple of months later, for absolutely no sort of clearly established or sort of publicized reason whatsoever, or obviously there is a reason, we just don't know what it is, Twitch swung the ban hammer in a permanent fashion and axed him from the platform. So, he was left with no streaming platform. He's actually moved to YouTube gaming now, which, attracts a fraction of the viewership that he had on Twitch before. And as far as the wider games media goes, he's all but disappeared from it. And the reason why this makes me feel so good is because even though he plays a character, like Dr. Disrespect is not the real person behind the wig and the glasses. I'm sure there are consistent elements there with regards to the guy's actual personality.
It's just a cover. He's just a cover.
It's 100% cover. But the problem is it's a stereotype that exacerbates the most toxic form of bro gaming that there is in the industry, that actually perpetuating that image does not do any constructive good. It enables and empowers the people who act like that for real, and it makes the entire scene a lot more toxic than it needs to be. And that kind of sort of thing should not be on a pedestal. It should be fucking torn down from that pedestal. And when it got torn down this year, it made me feel so good. So I thought that was a great shot in front of.
That was a good one
this year.
Yeah, for sure. I'll go next. My pick, I'm going to read a news headline for my best gaming schadenfreude. So the headline reads, Square Enix reports $48 million loss following release of underperforming Marvel's Avengers. I was not looking forward to Marvel's Avengers from the start. It never struck me as a particularly good-looking game. The gameplay elements themselves didn't interest me. And when it came out, I thought it was, like, I didn't play it, but from all the coverage and everything, I just looked shit. People say, "Oh, the campaign's good," but we covered this whole half-baked like live service thing, and I'm glad that it did poorly. Like, sure, it sucks. There are real people who work at Square Enix that worked hard on this game, and it's unfortunate for them that their product is failing. But I'm sorry, but in this dog eat dog world, I'm just glad that your shitty business model of a half-baked live service failed. Make a proper single player game or a proper live service game.
Yep, I actually completely agree. Like, it was a good game with a live service leech attached to it, and it made it worse.
Yeah.
So
it really was Anthem all over again in so many ways.
Yep. Yeah.
Yep.
And they've like Anthem, Square Enix have said, we're going to continue supporting it. It's going to have this revival like Anthem's supposed to have this Anthem Next or whatever it's called to reboost it. It's going to fail. Like Anthem's never going to come back to a full-on success, and Marvel's Avengers is never going to reach the heights that Square Enix dreamt for it, and it's going to just be quietly taken around the back and shot in the head at some point.
Yeah, they actually did release the new DLC for it this week with what's her face, the Hawkeye apprentice.
Such a shit idea.
Yeah. So
give a superhero game. Why would you give us a crappier Hawkeye who's already the crappiest Avenger? Like, what were you thinking?
Well,
like, you have a literal unlimited scope of comic book characters, and you chose a character nobody knows who fires a bow.
To be fair, Disney are doubling down on that particular character too, because it's one of the announced Disney Plus series that they're doing in the Marvel MCU.
Is it out now?
It will be out soon, and there's been a lot of media this week about the shooting that's happening right now. So, yeah. So
if it was timed with that, I would see it being a good move. Yeah, I've heard at least that the DLC is really good. I've heard that it's actually really, really solid.
Yeah.
But I don't disagree with Adrian either. I think it's pretty a bad choice for a game that's already kind of struggling. You know,
I have a theory. I actually suspect, based on some things that I've heard, that they might have actually anticipated a Black Panther DLC first, which is a bit more of a
that would have been amazing.
Yeah, but for obvious reasons, they've decided now is not the right time to push ahead with that. So, yeah, it's a tricky one.
I think that game, to survive, that game needs X-Men. If you put X-Men in there, people love X-Men.
That'd be really cool.
That'd get people on board.
Love some fucking X-Men. Just
throw a Wolverine and a Gambit at them. They'll love it.
X-Men. Yeah. Get what's his name? Morph. Get Morph in there.
That'd make a great expansion.
Another shitty X-Men.
Yeah.
Like it would actually be really cool. Like actually starting that story while the Avengers story is also starting. Like this is what was happening with the X-Men somewhere else in the United States. You know, like that'd be kind of cool. I quite like that.
They could do a bunch of stuff. Yeah.
All right. Adrian, your gaming schadenfreude.
My schadenfreude is truly Adrian in that my schadenfreude goes out to one individual in particular, but it is an offshoot of every opponent I've played in Mortal Kombat who has tried to cheese me, and I have fucked them up and then teabagged them and felt amazing because I am normally the one getting teabagged. So I've mentioned before that Shiva in Mortal Kombat 11 has a move where she jumps off the top of the screen, she comes down on top of you after a short delay, you can't block it, you can't do anything about it except quickly dodge backwards, which you need to be really quick at, and you need to know exactly what you're doing. And in the massive scope of players that is Combat League, most people can't dodge it. So a lot of scrubs go Shiva and just do that move over and over and over again. And every time I see someone pick Shiva, I go, yes! And then I do the dodge and I punish them and then I teabag them because they shouldn't have done that in the first place. But my actual schadenfreude goes out to a guy that I'm pretty sure I got banned from the PSN network because he went a character, he abused me over the microphone the entire time he was playing me. I beat him. He quit in the middle of the match and then sent me several pages of abusive, horrible messages over the PSN network. I then reported him, and I got a few days later a message from PSN saying action has been taken. I then played another player with almost the exact same name, using the exact same character, doing the exact same thing, who I beat again, who then quit in the middle of the match. And I'm pretty sure I had an impact, and I'm pretty sure I had a negative impact on that guy's day. And for that reason, Nimble but Tipsy, fuck you. You're my schadenfreude. You fucking asshole. Fuck you.
I love it.
I love that.
Yeah. Feels good.
Having seen the images of this, like he like you actually mentioned it in one of the messages you sent him about where you were going to post it. Yeah. Like, because it was so fucking just like generic. Like, you know, put some effort into your attacks.
Just basic, just like a real basic bitch. And I'm just, it was just great. And I didn't rise in my messages because I did, and it was good because I didn't realize at the time that PSN reviews the entire conversation. It doesn't just look at their
It's not
activity;
just
it
one
looks
side.
at your responses.
Yep.
Yeah, which I didn't realize. But in my specific replies, I said in one of the lines, "Peace, my friend. I hope you find what you're looking for." And if that is not the perfect response for someone else to review, I don't know what is.
100%.
Yeah, my schadenfreude is definitely against that dude. So screw him and screw anyone that does what he does.
Yep.
I love it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Good stuff. All right, well, we're on to our last two categories for the night, which are ones that are returning from last year, and on a similar kind of trajectory to what we've been talking about tonight. This all sort of creates a consistent theme, I feel. So we're going to move on now to, we'll do the positive one, just to sort of break things up a little bit, and we'll end on the slightly more negative one. So, gents, let's talk about biggest surprise. So what was our biggest surprise of the year? So biggest surprise could be like an actual surprise that we experienced in the middle of a game, like some sort of twist or turn we didn't see coming. It could be a surprise in terms of something that released that we weren't expecting, something that was better than we expected, something that happened in the industry that was just a surprise for a positive or potentially other reason. What was your biggest surprise this year? So Christian, let's throw to you first for this one. What was your biggest surprise in 2020?
My biggest surprise in 2020 was how much Destiny 2 I played.
I nearly put down as mine, just full transparency, you and Adrian getting back into Destiny 2.
Yeah.
Well, for me, it's
especially after how much we ragged on it non-stop for like years.
For me, it's pretty much the first time I've gotten into Destiny 2 properly. Like I played it on launch and just did the campaign, and that was basically it. So this is the first time I've actually put in time into Destiny 2, and it is a game that we did some friendly jibes towards, and I am shocked then how I've played it 520 hours on Steam, which for me is several times the higher than any other game on Steam. For me, it's by far and away the game I put the most hours into on Steam. The only other game I think I would have ever put more time into is Hearthstone, which would blow that out of the water. But so 520 hours of Destiny 2 was a huge surprise to me. How much I've enjoyed it. It's been really a really fun thing this year. I'm playing with you guys, playing all the raids. It's been great. Like, I still do think that the game has flaws. I still do think that there are a lot of things it could do better. I think it has problems communicating its story and its narrative in large ways still. I think there are problems with some of the RPG elements as far as like lack of customization with powers, and like I find I struggle to feel like my character is meaningfully different from other characters in any significant way. But that's all small things compared to 520 hours of game that I've thoroughly enjoyed. So that was a big surprise.
I think it's also worth saying that despite the fact that a lot of them are obvious, you can't play any game for 520 hours and not see the rough edges. Like, for sure.
Yeah. Definitely.
Nice.
Yeah, that's me.
All right, well, I'm going to go sort of around the screen in order of how it's appearing. So, Matt, your surprise.
My biggest surprise this year was Flight Sim is back, and it's cool as fuck.
Yeah.
I was tempted to pick that, actually. Yeah.
Like I remember as a kid going to my dad was in the band, and we would always go over to one of his bandmates' house, and we didn't have a computer that was any good at all, but they had one that could do like Mech Warrior and Flight Simulator and everything, and I remember just spending so much time just playing Flight Simulator while Dad was doing gigs and that sort of thing. And so now that it's back, like I'll be honest, like I kind of expected it to pull a Sim City, where like Sim City kind of had like a big break, and then they were like, yeah, new Sim City's coming out. And it's like, oh, cool. And then it came out, and everyone was disappointed. I kind of expected a little bit of that from Flight Sim, and instead, like it was all over the news about how gorgeous it is, and how relaxing it is. And having picked it up to play it, like even without a flight stick and everything, it's just such a wonderful game. Yeah, like I would love to get one of those and actually just like sit down and just play it and just fly planes around everywhere. I need to put more time into it because it's just
Christian's unusual
great.
Sex toy that he just.
I was playing it the other day. Yeah,
it's just like that surprises me. I love the fact that Microsoft and the studios that worked on it put so much effort into that game. when it kind of felt like we'd moved past flight sim being a thing that would ever be popular again, and yet here we are.
Yeah.
I love that. I love it.
Just related to this as well, just this week we of course got the news that one of the faces of the OG flight simulators on PC, Chuck Yeager, actually just passed away this week at 97.
He's the first man to break the sound barrier.
Yeah. So,
wow.
And I remember his name because for me, growing up, like it was synonymous with flight sims that I played at that age. Like it was, all the flight sims with Chuck Yeager's Flight Simulator, sort of thing. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the original Microsoft Flight Simulator is older than Windows by a long shot. It's 38 years old. 1982, the first Microsoft Flight Simulator came out. And yeah, I think it's a great pick, Matt, because I was really surprised as well. No Clip put out a recent documentary where they talked to Asobo Studios and Microsoft about the technology behind how they made it. That's really interesting for anyone who wants to know how they recreated such a great rendering of the entire Earth and all the weather systems and everything. Definitely check that out.
I gotta say, one of my biggest regrets, sort of going into 2021 and not being able to do the usual prediction show with you guys, with us wrapping up, is going to be that I won't be able to predict the new rise of Pac-Man again. Given that in recent years we've had Flight Simulator making it huge again this year, like not only that last year or the year before, like Tetris came out of nowhere and was the biggest thing on the planet again, and all this shit. Like these games from our childhood, like the very first things are becoming big again. I can't wait to see what's next. So yeah.
Mech Warrior,
that'd be good.
Yeah.
I flew 2 days ago. I flew from Haneda Airport in Japan to Incheon Airport in South Korea, and just because I could, just took off and just cruised at 40,000 feet in an Airbus A320, just occasionally peering down through the realistically rendered and real-time accurate clouds, and like the time of day and the weather real time, and it was just beautiful, like just flying over the countryside in Japan, and then off the coast of Japan, and then flying over Jeju Island, and it's so relaxing. I love it.
Yeah, nice. Adrian, what was your biggest gaming surprise of 2020, would you say?
My biggest surprise is that Fallout 76 is still receiving updates. What the fuck is wrong with the world? What the fuck is going on?
Perfect.
That's perfect.
Yeah. I actually think that's the best thing you could have possibly picked. Yep.
Yeah.
Not wrong.
Not wrong.
I've got no argument. Like, yeah. And
do you want to come to Fallout 76's defense, Luke?
No.
I have seen nobody talking about it either. Like,
It's a meme because last time my biggest surprise was also Fallout 76, so I'm linking it together.
They brought out that whole Wastelanders thing, but
there was the Brotherhood of Steel thing that's come out recently as well. I've seen a little bit of stuff on more the advertising. I haven't seen any media coverage of it. Every now and then I have an idle thought, like a morbid curiosity of stepping back in and sort of seeing what state that game is in now, but it's a morbid curiosity on the same line as when I have a massive dinner, whether I would actually want to sift through my own poo, and I don't, so I won't. So
you can't just keep throwing glitter on a turd and it's like, oh, we've thrown more glitter on the turd. Come look at the turd again. No.
I do have to give them props for being so dedicated to recreating a wasteland that they scare away all of their players, so that if you do play it, you are literally alone in the wasteland.
You had me in the first half. I'm not going to lie.
I love that. Actual props for sticking to it, but at the same time, like, with No Man's Sky, there was actually a good game there at its core.
I was just going to say, it's not going to do a No Man's Sky. No.
Like there's nothing of value in Fallout 76.
I wouldn't even hold up No Man's Sky as the pinnacle of doing a turnaround anyway.
No, it's really not.
I would say it's a good example. I wouldn't say it's necessarily the best example, but
it's not the best example.
14 is the best example.
Yes, 100%. I'd agree with that. Yeah, but there's nothing of value in Fallout 76. I don't.
Just very very quickly, one other legitimate surprise was Last of Us 2. I actually really, really liked that game, which surprised me because I bought it sort of almost reluctantly.
I remember, you had very little interest in it going in.
Yeah, like almost no interest at all. But still, I think about replaying it quite often. And no other PlayStation game has made me feel that way. Not even Spider-Man, which I'm a big Spider-Man fan. Even that, I'm like, take it or leave it. But Last of Us 2, I'm actually really kind of like drawn to it for some reason. And that surprised me.
Yeah.
For a legitimate answer, but really Fallout 76.
Well, my biggest surprise of the year, and Christian might get it, what it is when I say that I never saw it coming. That is falling fucking head over ass into the world of Persona in the way that I did, and particularly I'm gonna put this down to the aspect that surprised me the most. I think was Atlas actually relenting on their long-standing policy of not releasing old games on new platforms. And in particular, the thing that shocked the shit out of me was when, like, just after I'd finished Persona 5 Royal and was just, like, chomping at the bit for more Persona games and had a conversation with Christian, like, literally just before this happened, like, what do I need to go and buy so that I can go and play Persona 4 Golden? And then the next fucking day, it felt like Atlas comes out of nowhere and announces, I think it was at the one of the E3 sort of live shows that happened in place with the PC gaming show.
Yeah.
That it was getting launched on PC, like not later in the year, but that fucking weekend. So it was the biggest shock to me, like the most pleasant surprise I could have possibly imagined or hoped for. And it came at the perfect moment for where I was at with my sort of love of that franchise. So, that was the biggest surprise of the year for me. And obviously love the shit out of it. So, yeah.
So, all things said and done, you did thoroughly like Persona 4 Golden? Because the impression I got was that you loved Persona 5 and were lukewarm on Persona 4.
No. I think it was tough to kind of I get an accurate impression because because of how close I played the two to each other. I was in very much a comparative kind of mindset when it came to the dialogue around both. I love both, like absolutely love both. I thought that it was very, very easy to see the flaws in P4 Golden after having immediately played 5 just beforehand. But it doesn't mean that I disliked it in the slightest. I still loved it as a game. It was kind of more relating to the conversation that you and I had about which one you preferred. And for me, I don't think it was so much a fact of like your first one is your greatest love. For me, it was just like I see the difference between the two, like being stark. Like there was no doubt in my mind which one I preferred, and I don't think if I had played it in the other order, it would have made that different at all either. So, yeah. But Persona 4 Golden's still a great fucking game and you should play it. It's real good. Yeah. So that's my surprise. So, all right, well, moving off biggest surprise, we're going to wrap up tonight with the related category, which is on its head. We're going to talk biggest disappointments of 2020 in games. So, 2020 biggest disappointments. Let's go in reverse order. Adrian.
That would...
Yeah, reverse order as I see fit. Adrian, you go first.
My biggest disappointment... Originally, I was going to say Marvel's Avengers. I was going to say that, but then I've never played it, so I felt a bit dirty calling it my biggest disappointment when I never touched it because I didn't want to get shit on my hands. So instead, I went for Minecraft Dungeons as my biggest disappointment because that I did play, and I was quite excited for it. And then, truly, out of anything I've played this year, it really disappointed me the most. Like, I couldn't uninstall it quick enough because it was just a bag of shit all around in my eyes. Like I just couldn't deal with it. So yeah, that was my biggest disappointment. And I mean, kids will eat that shit up because they're morons. Like kids are stupid. Of course they like Minecraft Dungeons. But anyone with like a developed frontal lobe can log into that game and immediately know that it's a pile of shit. And that whoever made it should feel bad. Like,
you know what's really funny, Adrian? I actually had a full conversation with my youngest son, Zach, a couple of days ago about this. We were talking about our favourite games on Switch and that sort of stuff, and he said, the game that I hate the most on Switch is Minecraft Dungeons. And I was shocked. I was just like, really? Because I'd seen him playing it before, and I thought he actually enjoyed it. Yeah, but he explained to me why he didn't like it, and some of the criticisms he had for an 8-year-old were actually pretty legitimate and not too distant from things that we've talked about. It just
It's
made
good to know that we're on the same level as an 8-year-old.
Yeah, it actually made me appreciate his views and his intelligence a lot more, being able to sort of call those things out. And he's at the point now where he's played enough games that he actually has a basis for comparison.
You can tell the difference.
Yeah. But it was funny. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I just feel like it's a shame because I really dig the aesthetic of it. Like, it looked fun and bright and colourful. It just lacked any depth and was just total waste of time.
Even as somebody that kind of enjoyed it, I 100% respect that, because it is such a one and done game, which is unfortunate because there's so much extra difficulty levels. I was going to say so much extra content, but there's not. It's just
they've released more, but yeah.
Yeah, but it's not the same thing as like, hey, you know, like the content just isn't exciting enough to want to go back and replay it on higher difficulties.
Yeah.
The biggest, I remember us bringing it up at the time. But the biggest metric, I think it was Christian that may have said this, is that if you took the Minecraft skin off of it and put a random skin on top of it, people would tear it apart. It would be
100%.
annihilated. Like, it's only because it's got Minecraft sort of slapped on top of it that it floated above water.
I would argue that if you took the Minecraft skin off and you put the Diablo skin on, yes, people would tear it apart. But if you took the Minecraft skin off and slapped some random kids game skin on, they wouldn't, and it would be the exact same result that what we've gotten to Minecraft already, which is nobody gives a shit, right? Because it's a game for kids. So yeah.
If they had to put the Crossy Road skin on it, perhaps.
If it was a Crossy Roads game, I'd actually probably be impressed.
Yeah. It's got that same kind of pixelated kind of blockiness. So,
but also it'd be released on mobile. You know,
my only other big disappointment is just Luke in general for this year of Pun.
Yeah,
like so disappointed
because of the quality or the lack of quantity, or
just all round, just anything to do with Luke and puns is my biggest disappointment this year.
Surely disappointment is a measure of expectation to reality, and I'm certain that you would have expected this throughout the entire year.
Not expectation, just about how it makes me feel inside. Like, I want to deep throat a toilet brush and just like scrub until I don't feel dirty anymore. But every 2 weeks we're back again, and Luke says something else that makes me want to.
I'll have to keep working at it. There's plenty of time. Yeah, look, I agree.
For the record, I can read the mind of my wife right now, who's in the bedroom hearing me, and she's probably messaging me, "Stop being mean to Luke," because that's what she said. We were playing Destiny, and I made that crack about you being old, and she was sitting over there, and she sent me a message while I was raiding. It said, "You're so mean to Luke."
But
she just doesn't know you well enough.
But I can't put that as my biggest surprise either, because consistently I expect it, so it's not an issue. No, for the record, I completely agree, Adrian. Like, I think that it was one of the ones I considered for tonight. I haven't landed on it, but Minecraft Dungeons was right up there for me. And I think that it actually made me feel quite a bit like my experience with Rage 2, in that it's the biggest gap from trying the game out in person at like a show, because we got to play Rage 2 at PAX as well, and we got to try out Minecraft Dungeons at PAX also. And I had a really positive experience with both of them, but when playing them on launch, the gulf between that initial feel playing it to actually having the time to sit down with it in earnest was just so massive. Like, it was almost like I felt like I'd been fooled initially. Yeah.
It's like they're games that are fun for 30 minutes and that's it.
Yeah.
And it just happens to be those 30 minutes they put on a show floor.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Matt, what was your biggest disappointment?
My biggest disappointment was that we weren't meaner to Luke this year.
There's still time.
No. This possibly going to be mega unpopular. My biggest disappointment is the start of this new console generation. I'm not excited by it at all. Okay. I have had zero reason to buy a console. I think it's just been kind of shit. They're not available. Like, you can't really get them. You're in a fight with people that want them, that see some value in them that I just don't. Like, I just I'm disappointed by it. Like, I was wanting to be excited for the next generation of consoles, and I'm not getting it, really. Like, the most excited I've gotten about this new generation has been when NVIDIA was talking about the 3080, and we were seeing, like, the cool shit that's going to do, but I'm just not seeing any of it with the consoles. It's like, cool, Miles Morales. I'm excited to actually get into playing that, hopefully over the Christmas break. I'll be playing it on the PS4. Like, it's just like the difference between it on the PS4 and the PS5 is not substantial, and I don't care about fucking loading times. Like, I'm not excited by the idea of not having 20 seconds of my day not taken up by a loading screen. Like, that's just not exciting.
Yeah.
Like, it's been drastically disappointing, and I don't think I'm going to buy any console until they have slim versions come out, most likely.
Do you think you would feel different if Halo Infinite had have come out on release and been good?
I still wouldn't have bought a console for it.
Yeah, because you could play it on PC. That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah, like nothing about my mood would have changed, pretty much.
I asked this question because it's how I feel. Do you think if there had been a slew of exciting new IP games that launched with the consoles, it would pull you in?
Yep. If there was a slew of new IP games that were exclusive to those consoles, I would be pulled in. But that's not the strategy. Like, the strategy is
low risk.
It's not even the start of a new console generation. Like, they're still keeping those old consoles alive, and it feels like when Destiny 1 first came out, and even when Destiny 2 first came out, like they had this issue where they were still supporting old consoles. And so there was a whole bunch of things where Bungie was like, sorry, we can't increase your vault space because we have to service the old console generation. And it feels like the PS4 and the Xbox One are just dead weight that are holding down the PS5 and the Xbox Series X from actually being exciting. Because, everything that you want is just going to be serviced on those consoles anyway. I have a PS4 Pro. Like, I can just use that to play Miles Morales and still have a good time. And the only thing I'm really missing out on is slightly prettier graphics and shorter loading times. And that's not exciting enough for me to say that I'm excited for the new console generation. So yeah.
Around the supply and demand logistics of actually getting one of the units, I 100% agree how bad that's been. That's a huge disappointment.
The moment that people were like, yeah, I got up at like 4:30 in the morning to put in my pre-order, I'm like, fuck that.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't see it.
And the disappointment that people, going through that process must have felt too when they actually had the things in their online shopping carts only to get to the counter and find they disappeared. That sort of shit is just heart-wrenching. So, yeah, I get it.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that I like the new console generation. I like my PS5. But as far as, like, excitement for it goes, like, I guess I'm not really super excited about it, but then it's not a disappointment for me because that kind of level of excitement I wouldn't really have expected in the first place. Like, me personally, I don't think I've been excited about a new console since I was a kid. Like, now I think it's cool new technology to have, and I'm glad I've got one, and I've enjoyed playing Demon's Souls. But I agree that it's not like exciting. Like, I'm not like, yes, fuck, I've got my PS5. It's so awesome. I love playing games on it. It's just cool and nice to have. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah, like the best kind of comparison I can make is I actually got excited for the Switch, and I hadn't owned a Nintendo console for
I was literally just about to say that.
Yeah, like I got excited about the Switch.
Yeah, I was excited to get my Switch as well. Yeah,
I got excited for Zelda in particular.
Yeah.
Like, but it was like I had owned Nintendo handhelds, but I hadn't actually owned a Nintendo home console since the Wii. And the Wii that we owned for like a month before everybody just stopped using it, and I took it back to EB while I still had the time. And like, I just didn't look back. I'm like, Nintendo home consoles just aren't for me. And so when they mashed together, like, here's your home console and the carry console, it's like, that's fucking cool. That's exciting. But like, everything about the new console generation is basically like, look at these load times, and it's like, oh, fuck off. Like, it's just boring. Like, I already get that on my PC. I've got SSDs. Woohoo! Like, my loading times are shorter. Yeah. Like, that's not exciting. So,
I've definitely got a base level of excitement for the new console generation, but it's very much linked to titles that I know are in development now.
Yeah.
Not that are out sort of yet. Like
Yeah,
God of War.
It's more about what it
Ragnarok
represents, right?
excites the shit out of me. Like it's all that
Yeah.
sort of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Once
I'm excited.
once
I'm
we-
excited for what it means, but not what it's actually has happened.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Like once we actually get some console exclusives that I'll have a good reason to actually go out and buy the console for, 100%. Like, let's go. I'm all in at that point. But I'm just not seeing it. And I think I feel like for me, it would have been a different scenario if there was more IP to get behind. And if games like Miles Morales were actually PS5 exclusives and they weren't on the PS4, like I feel like that's been detrimental for my excitement and really buy-in on this console generation, pretty much.
Yeah.
So
This might sound really dumb, but from my perspective, like I don't consume a lot of news around the consoles and stuff. And when I think of the PS5, I just think about the small library of new games that have been released with it, and like I just don't see anything exciting there. Like a Spider-Man game that kind of already exists, a Ratchet and Clank game that you can't get at the moment with launch. Like things like that, which like it would have been cool if like I just remember thinking of the PS4 and like Infamous being a big draw for me. Like
Yeah.
a game
That wasn't a release game though.
wasn't it? Well, it was a reason for me to get a PS4.
I would agree though, because like I remember like Xbox 360 and PS3, and it's like side by side comparisons. Here's the stuff that you should be really caring about and everything. And sure, that was like console war era, but I feel like if you compared the PS3 against the PS5, and you're not talking about hardware specs but release titles, the PS5 would be panned because
I want to contest that, because I think there's a repeated narrative that comes up with new console generations about launch lineups, and people seem to forget how bad launch lineups are in general. Like the PS3 launched with a Heavenly Sword, and like that, and there were no good PS3 launch games. PS4 launched with Killzone Shadowfall and Knack. Like there were no good PS4 launch games. And there are very rarely good. Like Nintendo, I think it does better than anybody on
PS4
on
had
games.
Rise Son of Rome as well on launch.
Yeah.
Oh, that Xbox, you mean Xbox One?
Oh, hang on, was that Xbox? I thought that was...
That's Xbox exclusive.
Oh, okay, fair enough. I've got the two mixed
Yeah,
up.
Xbox had Rise Son of Rome, which isn't a good or memorable game.
Yeah.
But I'm not talking about good or memorable, because they can't be memorable yet. It's just released.
Yeah, but I mean stuff that becomes
just
memorable, right? Like Zelda launching with Switch was an awesome launch title.
Yes.
But most consoles don't launch with good games.
But I'm not talking about good games. I'm talking about games. I'm talking about any games, right?
Okay.
Like, and if you took the games on the PS5 that you can already play on the PS4, took those out of the equation, how many games does the PS5 have?
Yeah, like 2.
It's a mixed bag
exactly.
though. Like there are definitely some people who have got games that have had sort of quality updates and quality of life updates for PS5 that are very excited about. Like I mean, great example, the PlayStation 5 update and next gen Xbox update for Destiny 2 has just gone live this week, and people are fucking enthused for that. Like they're real happy. So
don't get me wrong. Like I'm not saying that people shouldn't be excited. I'm saying that for me, I was expecting more out of the start of the console gen, and I just haven't gotten it. Yeah.
All right. Well, Christian, disappointment time.
Yes. My disappointment is also related to console generations, but it's kind of the reverse of the new consoles, which is I've been disappointed with Nintendo this year. I think that Nintendo has done basically nothing this year. Like their big games have been the Mario RPG one, the Paper Mario game, and the 3D All-Stars. They haven't really had any like tentpole exciting games this year at all. And my Switch has been kind of languishing, and I haven't really played my Switch at all this year.
Yeah.
So I would have liked to have seen just some big game, whether it was Breath of the Wild 2 or Metroid Prime 4 or I don't know, any of their
3.
Bayonetta 3 for me personally, I would have loved that. 3 years since that was announced as of yesterday. Or like, I mean, Pokemon was last year, so I wouldn't expect a new Pokemon game, but just something. I just feel like it was just a disappointing year for Nintendo.
Yeah, it felt like they kind of coasted on their Animal Crossing success for the longest time.
Yeah.
It's a weird one.
And I mean, Animal Crossing was fun. We all enjoyed that, but it's not the I go on about loving like big single player games. and it wasn't that kind of game for me. It wasn't that kind of experience.
I think a big part of its success was partly because of COVID sort of creating a perfect storm of people sort of being at home playing that more than they would otherwise. Yeah, but also the fact that there was nothing else in the Nintendo space competing with it. So the fact that it was kind of like the big thing they had for the first part of the year, and there was nothing else sort of dividing attention, is part of the reason why it was so popular as well. So
yeah.
I wonder how much of the game drought and the lack of interesting titles at the start of this new console gen, because that's attached almost, just comes down to COVID. Things getting delayed because of COVID.
I wonder whether Nintendo actually pulled a bunch of their sort of releases from the schedule and pushed them into 2021 to try and get out of the way of the next gen.
Yeah, it's possible too.
Yeah, but I think it's a fallacy in strategy anyway, because what tends to happen is next gen launches and then their big wave of games is the following year or so. So
I also think Nintendo just often doesn't pay as much attention to that sort of stuff, like what their competitors are doing in general. They kind of play by their own tune.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah,
that's fair. All right. Well, my biggest disappointment is, a bit of a disappointment in itself to finish up with, because we've already talked about it. So mine was Marvel's Avengers. So I did consider Minecraft Dungeons, but in terms of expectations to delivery and afterthought, Avengers is the most disappointing game of the year for me so far. So I will maintain that I enjoyed the single player campaign, but it was way too short for what it was, and the amount of missed opportunity that game represents to me is just colossal. So, but we've kind of said everything about it already. Like it's
you might even say it was giant, man.
What?
Giant, man?
No.
Honestly, it's funny how bad you failed.
You guys are just too dumb to get my jokes.
No, I appreciate that you're trying to be consistent with the topic, Adrian, and having the most disappointing joke possible to end the show on. That's just, beautiful.
Yeah.
So, Marvel's Avengers. I was upon finishing the campaign immediately, like considering jumping back in for the Kate Bishop DLC, but I'm just so not interested now. Like I feel like I'm done with that game. So yeah,
it was one that I nearly put on there, and not because I was disappointed in the game that came out, but I'm disappointed that I wanted to get into it and then I couldn't, right? Because it was basically just there's no reason to get invested, and I was so I was really barracking for it. I was really hoping that it would actually turn out good.
Yeah.
And it just it sucks.
Great cast of voice actors. The talent in that lineup was excellent, and it really did sort of pay off in the campaign. But honestly, how do you take an Avengers property game off the wake of what we had last year in the cinemas and fuck it up? Seriously. Maybe some of it is Avengers fatigue to a certain extent. That could be a factor I will appreciate. But yeah,
I don't think it's Avengers fatigue. I think the game's just bad. The live service part of it is just bad. But I'm going to say something right now. I don't want it to do a No Man's Sky comeback.
No,
I want it to do the Old Republic style comeback. So the Old Republic was the Star Wars MMO. And when I say comeback, it didn't really come back into the limelight in a gigantic way, but it embraced the part of the game that people actually enjoyed, which was the single player aspect of it. The stories and being able to have BioWare storytelling in an online space. And it was okay, fuck it. We're not going to care about raids. We're not going to care about PvP. We're just going to make it an online game that you can run around with friends with BioWare storytelling. And you got to just embraced that single player storyline aspect of it. I want to see Avengers do that. I basically want to see them just be nope, let the fucking online part die. Fuck it. It can just sit there. People can mess around with it if they want to. But we're going to just add more single-player, interesting story content, because that's the part that people have reviewed well about the game. So
I think what I would probably prefer is for them to take an Avengers-style sort of character lineup and create a game that's a lot more akin to Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. Make it a really immersive sort of narrative experience focusing in on one or two characters. And make it a bit sort of more off-the-wall, kind of different in terms of the stories they can tell. Yeah, that would be cool. But otherwise, I think that we've kind of, we've seen enough of this Anthem style, game that just flounders after release because it's trying to be something much bigger than it is and being compared to the games that have succeeded in that respect, like your Warframes.
Yep.
your Destinies and that sort of stuff. So yeah,
The bar to entry for a game to be a good live service game just goes up every single year.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
I feel like it's almost that that phase that we went through after World of Warcraft found its success, and like everybody was trying to chase the MMO train and become like the next WoW killer. Like that's what they're trying to do now. They're trying to become the next sort of Destiny or Final Fantasy 14 killer. And it's just not working out for them. So yeah,
Never has been a strategy that worked.
no, that's it. But we'll end on that disappointment, and hopefully for those of you who are listening and watching now or later, this hasn't been a disappointing episode for you. Hopefully. That's it. Next episode for our big finale, we have 4 categories remaining. Should we mention what they are now? I think we'll mention what they are.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Let's do it. So we're going to round out the party favorites for part 2. We're going to talk about my suggested category, which is video game earworm of the year. So something that in an audio format has really sort of stuck with us throughout everything that we played during the year. We've got most emotional moment, which is returning from last year. We've got Matt's suggestion, which is like just fucking on brand for the show, which we're going to do. We're going to do the Gremlin Award. Matt, what is the Gremlin Award?
The Gremlin Award is for something that you thought was going to be bad, but turned out good in your mind, or people agree that it's shit. Like you could go out there and be like, hey, yeah, people were like, Avengers is going to suck. And it did suck. But hey, I actually kind of enjoyed playing Iron Man in it. Like you could do something like that.
Yeah.
Like it's like that's bad, but you got some good out of it. You could say, hey, yeah, COVID, I got stuck inside. I played so many fucking games. Also lost my job, but played a shit ton of games.
Exactly. Yeah. And if you want to hear more about the Gremlin concept, we've got a whole episode named after it, so you can go back and listen to that. So, yeah. Which might have been from last year, actually. I can't remember how long ago that was.
I think it was.
Yeah. And then wrapping things up, of course, with our overall favourites of 2020. So we'll talk about what our games of the year are. And for each of us, that's a top 3 picks. So we'll go through first, second, third for all of us. And that, as well as other stuff that we'll wrap out the show with next week next fortnight on Monday the 21st for our final episode to wrap out the year and to wrap up the party loaded arc. So that's it. So more news coming up on our social feeds. Thank you everybody who's listened tonight. Thank you everybody who's listened for as long as you have. It's been awesome to sort of continue to provide the show as ongoing entertainment. We enjoy the shit out of it, and we're going to enjoy the shit out of it for at least one more episode. So but that's it. Anything to add, guys? We're good? We're done? Let's go play some games.
Yep, done.
We got one more fortnight to cram in as much stuff as we possibly can to see out the year. So let's go do it. All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Hope you've had a great episode. We have too. We'll see you next time on the 21st. Don't miss it. Until then, good night.
Good night.
The Party Loaded podcast is a Channel Endgame production. For this and more great gaming content, bookmark channelendgame.com.